is the Mortal Thor #3, and I'm not sure what's more surprising to me. Is it the fact that Marvel created a Thor book where Thor is just like a regular guy who smashes people in the face with hammers? Or is it the fact that the book kind of works? So in this issue, amnesiac civilian Thor, Sigurd, gets a job at a high-rise construction site, and some bad guys attack him there, and he responds pretty much the same way he has the past 2 issues, violently and bloodily with a hammer. But yeah, I'm really surprised at how positively I've responded to this book, when you get right down to it, it's just Sigurd smashing bad people in the face with a hammer. I mean, I guess you can't underestimate the appeal of wanton violence sometimes. Seeing all the absolute Batman buzz from this past week, Marvel's probably kicking themselves that they didn't have Sigurd face off against a bunch of white supremacists. But yeah, honestly, I actually would have had him lean into the violence a little bit more in this issue. I felt like they could have been a lot more creative with the fight sequence that takes place, on the girders, the high-rise, the construction site, etc. It's not all blood and violence, though. There's actually kind of an interesting story twist at the end of this issue that makes me curious for next issue. Absolute Superman #13 is about Superman facing off with a rich guy's personal militia, basically, that has chosen to terrorize everyday Americans for no good reason, really. That doesn't evoke anything relevant or timely, does it? But yeah, in this issue, Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus Corporation and the army and the peacemakers that come with them invade Smallville, Kansas, which of course is Kal-El's adopted hometown. Superman fights them off while Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen work and report from the sidelines. This is one of the strongest Absolute Superman issues that we've seen since the first issue of the book came out a year ago, almost to the day. And I don't just mean that because of parallels with current events. Of course, that does make things more poignant, but Superman, Lois, and Jimmy, they're all kind of in peak form here. There are enough of those kind of elements in place that it actually kind of feels like a classic Superman story in a sense, despite this obviously being an alternate universe with alternate versions of the characters. Artistically, Rafa Sandoval really delivers, and the colors look fantastic. The only thing I'll nitpick at from an art standpoint is that I miss Superman's cape. I don't even mean that necessarily as a Superman purist. It feels weird to have the S insignia without the cape. I know the Sunstone Mist is supposed to kind of act as the cape, but it's not the same. I think my favorite panel in the issue, or at least one of them, is sort of an inconspicuous establishing shot of where Lois and Jimmy are. But it's at the Smallville Public Broadcast Center or something like that, and Lois is talking about how citizens are being held without due process, and very much ties in with the whole current event thing. Mikkel Janin also turns in a tremendous variant cover for this issue. If nothing else, Google it. It deserves to be seen. I would argue that Absolute Superman has kind of been in a little bit of a lull for the past few months, but from a quality standpoint, it all comes rocketing back with this issue. If you've phased out of Absolute Superman for a bit, I would recommend coming back here. When it comes to Rook Exodus, issue 8 of which just came out, and the art specifically by Jason Fabok and colorist Brad Anderson, I feel like I've kind of exhausted all the good things you can say about comic book art. Like, I've given them all the compliments. And as such, weird, off-the-wall compliments might start to seep into some of these videos as we go through here. Like this one, for instance. Rook Exodus #8 has art that's so richly detailed that it achieves an immersive quality that activates senses that it's not necessarily meant to. I could smell colors in this comic book. And here's the thing, I'm kidding when I say that, but only kind of. So in this issue, Rook and his cohorts are still looking for Bloodhound, who they think may know how to fix Exodus's broken world engine. He can save the planet with science stuff, basically. And in the process of following him, hunting him, searching for him, they wander into a big spider's nest. But yeah, as far as that immersive quality is concerned, early on in this book, Rook and his cohorts are in a winter setting as they prepare to enter the spider's nest. And, the combination of how detailed the art is and Brad Anderson's just brilliant colors, made me feel the cold in that setting. You can almost hear the wind. There's an immersive familiarity to it that just activates your other senses. And of course, that rich, immersive detail when it comes to real-world type stuff naturally lends credibility to the sci-fi sort of stuff, like when they enter the spider's nest. This might be my favorite page in the book. You've got the characters rappelling into this vast, dark abyss, which has some natural suspense to it. And then on the right side of the page, you've got the shot of them progressively going down, and then the spider comes up. Again, great, thriller, horror, suspense type stuff. It can be easy to get lost in the weeds sometimes with these vast, detailed sci-fi worlds. Star Trek's, Mad Max, those kinds of worlds. And that's why I think from a writing standpoint, it comes in handy to keep the stories, or the early stories in those universes, pretty simple and easy to understand. And to his credit, our author Jeff Johns has mostly done that here. You can break down this second chapter of Rook Exodus pretty simply, at least at this point, just by saying, they're looking for an insane man who might be able to save this dying world. Not the simplest premise in the world, but you get it. You can grasp onto it. But yeah, Rook Exodus really hasn't missed a beat since it's been back. If you're not picking this book up, I think you're missing out. Hey, let's do a new Batman comic. Yeah, sure. Who does Batman go up against? Batman! What? Let's do a comic book where Batman fights Batman. But how does that... And then whoever wins the Batman versus Batman fight has to fight Batman. Yeah, whatever. It'll make money. Let's just go with it. Yeah, this is DC KO Knightfight #1. So sometime during the events of the DC KO storyline that's currently ongoing, it's DC's big event comic right now, Batman gets transported to an alternate universe where he faces an alternate universe version of himself, and I guess over the course of this story that's going to keep happening, and the big catch is that the different versions of Batman that he faces are the various Robins that we've had over the years. Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, etc. I was very much joking up front, okay, but at the same time it does kind of feel like the DC Comics Collective's last living brain cell came up with this story. Batman fights Batman, and then more Batman come in to fight Batman. DC knows where their bread is buttered, you can't deny that. But unfortunately the story that we get here doesn't really do it for me. Just a combination of the fact that I'm not sure how it fits into the DC KO narrative, and plus the fact that we've seen the whole Batman fights Batman or Batman fights his various Robin stories so many times, it just doesn't work for me. I needed something kind of different here to hook me, and I just didn't really get it. On the upside, it's pretty. It's Dan Mora doing the artwork, so it's going to look great, and really any excuse for Dan Mora to draw Batman is usually a good one. But yeah, no offense to anybody involved on the creative end of this, but I don't anticipate myself coming back for more here. The winner of a Batman versus Batman fight is usually designed to be DC because they'll probably make a lot of money from it. No thanks. There's other comics I can invest in. Star Wars Han Solo Hunt for the Falcon #3 has the distinction of being the only Star Wars story I've ever read that actually plays more like an episode of Shrinking. You ever see Shrinking? It's actually pretty good. It's the show that Harrison Ford does with Jason Segel on Apple TV. You know, in this issue, you could actually switch Chewbacca out with Jason Segel's character pretty seamlessly, I think. But yeah, as Han Solo and Chewbacca continue their hunt for the lost Millennium Falcon, we get a lot of heart-to-heart talks in this issue, both in the present day and via flashback. Han and Chewbacca, Leia and Chewbacca, etc. But you know, it's not just the heart-to-heart talk scenes that make this kind of feel like a Shrinking episode. It's also the fact that Han Solo looks and feels about as old as I've ever seen him. And I don't necessarily mean that in a derogatory sense. I mean, people age, and Harrison Ford actually aged quite gracefully. But you know, in The Force Awakens, Harrison Ford still had that Clint Eastwood, Liam Neeson, Morgan Freeman type quality where he was still able to maintain his aura despite being much older. You know, he still felt like Han Solo. The Han Solo that we see here kind of feels like Walter Matthau in Grumpy Old Men, both in terms of how he looks and what they have him saying and doing. I mean, it fits with the story that they're telling, so I can't say that it's inappropriate or whatever. I just think that the creators here might have overplayed that hand a little bit. Meanwhile, Chewbacca never ages. In any medium. Like, they could not have been bothered to put a single gray hair on his head in The Force Awakens. It still kind of is weird to me all these years later. The creators of Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum #4, pull off kind of a cool trick on the very first page here. I don't know if trick is really the right word, but it's a cool visual effect that really brings you into the issue. So in this issue, Superman has been drawn into the 5th dimension, which is famously where Mr. Mxyzptlk is from, and naturally a lot of weird, bizarre, trippy stuff happens as he tries to escape. This is definitely the strongest issue that we've gotten from this story so far. And not coincidentally, it's also the strongest issue that Martin Morazzo, our artist, turns in. He's got a lot to work with here. He's really on his A game. But yeah, Superman is in the 5th dimension here. And on the very first page, we see the exterior of the Daily Planet building. And a bunch of people are presumably on their way to work, I guess. They're riding clouds, spaceships, balloons, etc. But then we've also got this person who's real and tinted green and is flying a spaceship. Some purists might kind of balk at that kind of thing, but I really dug it because it firmly implants the notion in your mind that this is a weird place and you never know quite what you'll see. And it's fun to look at. Look at this guy. Dr. Fate is in this issue as he and Batman and Lois Lane ponder how to get Superman out of the 5th dimension. I really appreciate the way Martin Morazzo drew the blue portion of Dr. Fate's costume here. It's got like a swishy, almost pajama-like look to it. I mean, he could have given him like blue armor, kind of like Batman is wearing, or sort of skin-tight tights like Superman wears, but no, he went for something different. I know this is kind of a stretch, folks, but if superheroes were real, I feel like their costumes would not all look the same. Like, they wouldn't look like they all shopped at the same generic superhero costume store. I feel like some artists would do well to remember that. There's a moment in Wonder Woman number 27 where the big bad guy tells Diana to get down on her knees. That goes about as well as you might think it would. So in this issue, Wonder Woman confronts Mouse Man. They're on this island where he's got this hyper control over his cult-like followers. They basically worship him. And he tries to bend Wonder Woman to his will. And it works out the way it works out. I think this is actually my favorite issue of Wonder Woman to come out this year, largely because of the get on your knees scene. I mean, obviously it has a certain brash undertone to it, if you take my meaning, but ultimately it's about Diana, Wonder Woman, standing up to this very powerful but deep down insecure and, dare I say, impotent man. He tries to humiliate her, and then she basically exposes him for what he truly is. And look, I'm just gonna say it, it does kind of feel like Wonder Woman is dealing with Donald Trump in this issue in a very direct manner. I know some people don't want to hear that. TikTok will probably hold back my video because of that, but it's what I think. Our author Tom King also illustrates the sycophantic nature of some of these cult members pretty well. Like, there's a scene where one of Mouse Man's followers is like talking him up to a prisoner, and the adoration that's on display there is almost homoerotic. And mind you, I don't have anything against people or things that are homoerotic. What I have something against is people who worship kings. And the cool thing about this issue, as I said, is that in this issue, the king kind of falls down and breaks his crown. You know, I'm actually pretty excited about Ferocious, which is a new story from Mad Cave Studios, issue 1 of which just came out. And I think if you check it out, you might be too. So listen up for a second. So we're in medieval type times here, and a boy saves a demon/devil type woman after a battle. The woman, the creature, then proceeds to lay waste to his entire village, killing countless people. So that was kind of an oopsie on the boy's part. Naturally, the boy vows revenge, and in his quest for revenge, he actually becomes the demon woman's apprentice. I say demon woman, devil woman. It's not entirely clear what this person is. The solicitation uses the word draconic, which can sometimes have a dragon connotation to it. I mean, she looks satanic and evil. This is a really strong first issue. And, you know, coming from a journalism/news writing background like I do, I really appreciate it when stories can pull you in and grab you quickly, like news stories are designed to do. And this issue does that as well as any that I've seen in recent memory. This cover by Andy Clark and Jose Villarrubia is very intriguing, very inviting from a curiosity standpoint. And then once you get into the issue itself, it really gets down to business right away. Like, it sets the period, we've got our inciting incident, and boom, 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 by the end of the issue, we've got a story moving. We don't get a ton of, like, exposition or character details and information in this issue. I don't even know if we know our two main characters' real names, but the intrigue, the conflict is all there up front, and it makes you want to read more. But yeah, Ferocious #1 did exactly what a first issue is supposed to do. It got me hooked, it got me interested, it made me want to see more. So I'll be anxiously awaiting issue #2. Oh boy. I I don't know if what I'm about to say is going to make people mad, but if you would, just do me a favor and stay with me for like a minute, just so I can explain it. It's really important in the modern era that Captain America not be written like an ignorant flag waver. Now, mind you, I am not saying that it's ignorant or dumb to wave the flag. What I'm saying is that it's important for Captain America to not blindly be a cheerleader for everything America does. It's important that Captain America have ideas of his own, opinions and values of his own, and that he doesn't just blindly fight for America regardless. Captain America should fight for America's values, not America's government. Ideally the two interests would be aligned, but throughout history, really, that hasn't always been the case. In some ways, he should kind of be like the conscience of America. And this Our Secret Wars storyline that culminates in Captain America #5 really reflects that side of Captain America, which is why I like it so much. There's honestly not a lot to say about this issue from a story perspective, other than it wraps up pretty much the way that you think it's going to wrap up. And that's okay, honestly. I would rather a book have a good ending that's predictable than a bad ending that I didn't see coming. I'm willing to make that trade. But yeah, it pretty much hits all the notes that I think you want it to hit, both from a writing standpoint and an artistic standpoint. And as you might imagine, the Avengers, or at least one of the Avengers, is involved at the end. The cover certainly suggests that. I'm really curious to see what they do next issue as Cap comes back to Latveria after the events of One World Under Doom. I would like to hear more from Steve Rogers about what just happened with One World Under Doom.